Fire Mechanic here, and today we're going to be replacing a fuel injector in a Ford 6.0 liter Powerstroke engine. And I already got this one all apart. I got all the parts laid out here. I kind of wanted to show you guys what is entailed in replacing a diesel fuel injector on one of these 6 liter, and also what parts you're going to need. Basically, a couple things you're going to want on this one. We had to take the passenger side valve cover off, so you're going to want a new valve cover gasket, and obviously the injector. We're just doing one. We did recommend to the customer replacing all the injectors on that side. It's usually a good idea. Truck's got about 140,000 miles on it, so but for now we're just going to do the one injector. We got all these parts right from Ford, and there's the part number on that you guys wanted to see. Also, you have these, this here is a high pressure oil feed system that actually feeds into the top of the fuel injector right here, and that's what these are. That's what these pieces right here are. That's where they actually go into the injector. And they have these tube stands, they call them, and these fail. The seals on these are very high failure rate, so anytime you're doing injectors on these 6 liters, you're going to want to replace these tube stands, these oil tube stand seals. And the front and back one are different. This one here is the back one. This one here is the front one. The back one's going to be the long one. This is the new one. They actually separate into 2 pieces right here. So when you pull the fuel rail out, you're going to want to pull this top section out first on both of these before you pull the rail out. And also, you're going to want to put this, once you get this off, pull the lower piece. You're going to want to install this first, then your oil rail, and then your tube stand seals. And they've actually updated these, and you can tell if you have the updated ones or not by the size here. This one actually takes a T6. The new ones take a T60, and the old ones is just a 10mm fit. So as you can see, that one there fits right in there nice. And but on these new ones, we're looking at T60, or it's actually an Allen, but I'm not sure the exact Allen size. So and the part number on these, this front tube stands, there's a part number, the Ford part number for that. And the rear one is the part number for the rear tube stand. And let's see here, and the part number for the valve cover gasket. Now, these valve cover gaskets are reusable, so you don't necessarily have to replace it, but I always like to put a new valve cover gasket on these. There's a part number for the valve cover gasket. Now also, there is a couple tricky things that you're going to run into when you're pulling this apart. I mean, obviously, first we're going to get the valve cover off. There's this bracket. There's a glow plug module, I believe is what this is. It sits on this bracket, so we're going to pull this bracket off, which kind of sits here. Then you got 12mm bolts that hold this whole valve cover down around there, and we'll get that up out of the way. But I mean, it's relatively straightforward until you get down inside of here. As you can see on this one, we had to replace cylinder 7 fuel injector. Really the only electrical connections I had to undo were the glow plug module, the high pressure plug, and the power lead, and then I just put those connectors aside. Also this one of the air intake tubes. Now, as far as tools needed, one tricky thing you're going to run into is when you're taking this high pressure fuel rail off, you have these bolts right here, which are going to be a T30, like this. Now the problem is the lower side of this fuel rail is right up against the firewall, kind of like this. So you can get the socket in there, but you can't get a wrench on it. So what I had to do in this case is just use my socket like this with a 1/4 inch wrench, and just like that, in order to actually remove these. It's only these two on the high pressure fuel rail that you're going to need to do like that. Once you break them loose, you can just you can screw them out by finger. But and then the other thing is, when you're removing the fuel injector itself, this is going to be a T40. Or yeah, I'll go over kind of when you're removing it and when you're installing it. They do have a keyway. As you can see right there, there's a little keyway that fits into the fuel injector, so you'll have the orientation right no matter what. But as you're removing these, it's a T40 Torx bit, but as you can see, this short one here, it fits kind of like cockeyed. So the best tool for the job is probably like a 3-inch extended Torx bit. I wasn't able to get it out like with a regular one. If you are using a regular one, just be careful you do not strip it. Now as you loosen this up, it's actually going to pull this injector out. And same goes for when you're installing the injector. As you tighten this down, it's going to press the injector down into the injector bore. And when you torque this down properly, everything's going to be good to go. So there's no, you don't have to tap this thing in or pry it out. It's all done with just this bolt right here. Just by loosening and tightening it, the injector is going to go in and out. So, and before you install these new tube seals, these tube stand seals, you're going to want, what I like to use is just some seal guide on these seals, and that's the same thing I do with these seals as well. On the new injector, I'm going to go ahead and put some seal guide on the seals, and then just place this down in the injector hole, and just make sure you slowly torque them down. I've had pretty good luck. It's very seldom do any of the seals I'll ever fold over or get pinched, as long as you're just kind of gentle with them and let them do their work. But I don't think there's anything I'm missing here, but it pretty much just about does it. If you're doing the passenger side here, it's a little more tricky. You got to pull the coolant reservoir, the air filter box, and drain some of the coolant out. On this one, I was able to actually do this without draining any of the coolant. There is this one coolant tube that runs above here that I disconnected. Probably would have gave me a little more space in here, but I didn't really need it. I had enough room, so this way the coolant system still stayed completely sealed, and I didn't have to mess around with that at all. You will need all the valve cover bolts are 12mm, so you will need a 12mm wrench to get these valve cover bolts out. And these are the same. This is the same area where you're gonna have trouble getting those high pressure oil rail bolts out, just because this heater box is very close and they don't really give you a whole lot of space there. So you got to wrench a couple of these valve cover bolts out and 2 of the high pressure oil rail bolts out, and that's probably the hardest part of the whole job. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I did have to. You got the fuel injector connectors here. You just push down on this and those pop out. And since the old injector was bad, I just tapped that plug with a hammer, and that popped right out. So that was no big deal there. If you do need to salvage the old injectors, you can find a socket, and they have little tabs on here that lock these connectors into these holes. You can find the proper size socket to just stick on there and press it. It will release those tabs, and that connector will pop right out. So in this case, I just tapped it with a small hammer and they popped out. We're not reusing the old injector because it's no good. So but there you have it on the 6.0 liter Ford diesel engine here for the fuel injector replacement. If you guys have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below, or if there's something I missed in this video, please let me know. I also did another video on how I diagnose this fuel injector, which I will also leave a link for below. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope this video was helpful. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the Flat Rate Mechanic.